uh, this will answer for you whether or not there is any validity to the charges made by, say, Trump and his allies about the use of these machines. Look at page 14 here, first slide we've got. This little page from the manual is talking about the brain of the vote computer, and that brain is incidentally the Bram-Hurley long worm, prompt and erase subclocker. I don't know of any machines that have a subclocker like that. I'm not sure what a subclocker is, but I have it on good authority that this is the basis for all of the complaints.
Boss, I think you might want to look at page 28 as well. I think there's some important information.
Let's look at that slide, page 28. This discusses the lookup. This is a lockout tube, spinner, and semiconductor hover mechanism. And it says here that it's removed and replaced between elections. Now that's pretty suspicious, isn't it?
No. I think you have to skip ahead 10 pages to the dressed down integrated Zen parsing unit.
Huh. That has access to the side view packets. That does sound awfully suspicious. I know that muddled.
Let me just interrupt you here, boss. Let me tell you something. The real stuff is on page 122. If we can, do you have a slide?
Do we have a slide for that?
The floor subtraction control center in Virginia? Because
this is talking about all of the non-local approximation. I know what that is from quantum physics. Non-local means not here.
Yeah, and it says the permutations are not recorded, so there's no evidence of phantom or irregular maintenance, but this does not guarantee that the manifest will retain its original verbal syntaxes. And I think what's really important about that here is that I have no idea what they're talking about, and I think that's the real conspiracy.
If you look at that picture, they have an arrow pointing to where this woman
Yeah, boss, that's how you know where their feet are.
Just to see what was going on, I did buy a few things. For example, here's a kneecap. Do we have a picture of that? I got this kneecap. It looks like a mask you would use. You would put it on your face because of the pandemic, but it's got that Trump-Pence insignia, and I guess you're supposed to wear it on your knee. They also have a CD for sale. This is called I Light Up Your Life. There's some things on here that, these are cheesy renditions of a bunch of old standards, like the one I really like, I'm dreaming of a white country, and even more. I mean, they are monumental. Then I received an email, or actually my investigator received an email talking about the giant blenders that they are almost out of, and the Trump campaign was offering to sell me one for $16,000, which I didn't really have $16,000 sitting around, but you can see a picture of this 10-foot high blender. It was called the Thumper, the Trumper Thumper, and I guess the idea was that you throw your I don't want to say enemies, the people who disagree with you, you have a place to put them and really mix it up. The other thing the president...
I'm thinking I could find another use for one of them, so I'm going to look into that, just saying.
Okay, well, I was only able to come up with 3,000 or 4,000, but I think we can say that we'll take one of those reserved ones. And
I think there's a strong possibility we could convert that into a machine that would count votes.
It's one that he sent to the General Services Administration on the morning of the 6th of January. And he's telling the maintenance man that one of his supporters who was touring the Capitol accidentally broke some windows, and so he's volunteering to pay for them. and he says the check will be good, because he's got a whole lot of money.
And I have this really refreshing pool water that's
You don't actually swim in that, do you?
not anymore, no.
About ERCOT, most people think that that's the Energy Reliability Council of Texas. That's the cover story. Look at this slide we've got here. And this one is something that Dan brought to me a while back. I didn't understand it at the time. If you look at the letterhead, 11 rich capitalists on tranquilizers. That's who was running our energy grid. But May, you told me that you don't really have to worry about that because you paid for your electricity with Bitcoin.
Well, it did seem like a really good idea at first, but my electric bill went from $30 to $17,000 an hour ago. It was at 90, and I think now it's up to 1,200. So I guess we'll see.
And pipe layers are going to be in demand, and I'm actually really good at laying pipe, so I'm kind of looking forward to this as an opportunity.
Well, let me go to another dimension of this while we're talking about opportunities. Senator Cruz of Texas had made a mistake, you could say, by taking the opportunity of a crisis to get out of town, so to speak. I think we've got a slide here. You've probably heard the stories and the excuses from Senator Cruz. When he left town and people found out about it, he first said that he was just trying to do the right thing, set a good example. And honestly, if you've got more money than you can spend and you don't have a real job, it does make sense to kind of pack up and get out of town. But that excuse didn't serve him well, so there was a second one, and we've got a slide here. This is something that Ray found for me. He actually had some bonus points on the Southwest airline, and he had to use them up on a trip to, I guess it was either Mexico or Ecuador. He had to use them right away. They were expiring. So that was his next excuse. But he didn't stop there.
Now, hold on a second. It just struck me, because every time I keep hearing about Heidi Cruz, I always thought it was either he's being filmed in 4K, or Heidi Cruz was now an in-action figure, like a combination tequila bottle topper or a toilet brush cozy.
Well, what I heard was some of the aides to Senator Cruz kept hearing him say, "Hide me, hide me, hide me." And behind his back, they were saying, "Hide me, Cruz, hide me, Cruz." And so I think that the story may have been garbled in the press, but you could be right there, Dan. I'm usually
right there.
I was going to say on top of a story, whereas Ray is usually underneath a story, and he has a different perspective. But I want to tell you, there is a possibility that Ted was not kidding us, because we went to the airport to track down his latest statement. He said he was actually planning to come back to Houston. When he got to the airport, he found out, because he went to the wrong gate. He thought he was going to Houston, and instead he was going to Cancun, and there was another gate right next to that. They were going to Oslo, and I think he jumped on that excuse.
He actually thought, he saw the word Gates, and he thought he was actually going to a Bill Gates vaccination seminar.
Anyway, the biggest name in news these days is Matt Gaetz. And when Matt Gaetz first hit the news, people were talking about water gates. You get it? I mean, people are always talking about new gates. But when he was interviewed by Mother Tucker Carlson on Fox News, I mean, Carlson probably was close to melting down. We have a picture of what it looked like when they were talking. Boy, that was brutal. Anyway, the narrative changed from water gates to, well, pizza gates. And this was basically because of a story in the news. This story, it appeared in the Squalid Revelations Digest, and then it quickly went all over the place. It was a story about travels with Matt Gaetz and 17-year-old girls. I guess that's a reference to infants.
Interstate travel with a minor, but it's not clear whether it was a coal miner or a gold miner.
Well, speaking of crossing state lines, one of my other investigators who's not here tonight gave me this insight. It looks like Gaetz may have been set up, and I'll tell you why. You've heard of these self-driving vehicles? It looks like he was in Kansas City, and he was in the back seat with, she was just 17, if you know what I mean, and he was saying, well, I don't have to drive because I'm back here doing what I'm renting this self-driving vehicle. Well, the self-driving vehicle went from Kansas City in Kansas to Kansas City, Missouri. And so you know what that means? He crossed state lines. So that sounds like the boy is being set up. But after people started talking about him being set up, he tried to change the narrative. That's something you hear about in politics these days, changing the narrative. And he said that his dad, Bill Gates, who I think all of you know, he said Bill Gates was wired throughout the Trump presidency.
Boss, I find this whole discussion pretty hard to take. For a long time, I was a closet Gates supporter, but I think at this point, I can't. I just got to leave them where they are.
He's also been sending nude photos to colleagues, and there was some confusion about that because initially it was, were they nude photos of someone else? Were they nude photos of him? And one of my closest sources tells me they were actually nude photos of Mitch high-ranking member of the Senate. Let's just say that.
I can see how that would have turned off a Swedish diplomat. When I started looking at this story, what I was really interested in, because we heard mention of sugar daddy websites, I was curious to know what goes on those sites these days, because I never look at them. Bobby, I understand you look at them periodically, but just for academic,
Just strictly for research purposes. Yeah.
Research purposes. But look, I've got you some. These came from Jess. I'm not sure why he was able to download these, but he did. See this first post, and by the way, on this website, you see they're not really sugar daddies anymore because there's hardly any sugar. So instead, they're high fructose corn syrup daddies. But don't let that confuse you. Look at this one from Lola. Here she says she's interested in sexual congress with a Congress person. That's interesting. She wants somebody unvaccinated, and I guess, Jess, you know a lot more about that than we do. And she prefers chest hair. Huh. I guess that's typical. Look at this next one here. This is from Mary Beth. And Mary Beth is from somewhere in Texas. The thing about this one that interested me, she says that she can't really have sex. She can pretend to be your sexual partner, but she's really still a virgin. I think she might have meant virgin, but I don't know the hip lingo these days. I mean, maybe people are a virgin on TikTok or something. This is my version. There are also men on these high fructose corn syrup daddy websites. For example, Frank here, this next slide, Frank says he's very successful as a bamboo importer, and he's really into bathroom humor and scapegoating. Aren't we all?
Bamboo is quite useful for posture correction. It's the only way I can keep my head up when I wear this these long interviews.
The biggest name so far to come audition is that Mr. Pillow guy. Anyway, he says God called him to audition. Elaine, were you monitoring his phone calls when he said that?
Well, yes, I was, and in fact, it was not God. It was Julia Louis-Dreyfus, and he was very confused, and she was calling to tell him to stop texting and calling her, and the whole thing was just a big mess.
Since I have you here with me, I have to share something. I got an email today, a video email, in fact, that really confused me. Mr. Producer, do we have a copy of that we can show the folks?
Hi, boss.
Here it is.
It's Ella, and I'm in a place in New Jersey that is not on any maps. I am disguised as a heart-shaped tomato with arms and legs. I am working on that story I told you about.
I know this isn't your voice. I know I didn't send you on a reporting mission to somewhere that's not on a map. Maybe you can explain that to me.
You know, I wish I had an explanation as well, boss. This is, in fact, the third time this has happened this week.
We're going to get to the bottom of it eventually, because people have tried to hack this show before, as you might remember, for an episode last year. Dandelion is not here tonight, but I wouldn't be surprised by that. I know why he's not here. You've heard that Princess Diana was tricked into giving her most famous interview to the BBC. This is the one in which she said, there are 3 people in this marriage. Well, I don't think that's the real story, and neither does Dandelion, because we found out before they edited the video of that interview, she actually said, there are 5 people in this marriage. Well, Dan was able to track down one of them, a construction worker in Brighton who is now something like 65 years old, who has a hell of a story to tell. And I don't know exactly what it is, but I know that at this very minute, Dan is probably sitting in a pub with him somewhere, believing every word he says. Now, as for the other person in the marriage, I don't know who that would be.
I've heard rumors that it's actually one of Queen Elizabeth's corgi dog handlers.
UFOs. You know what? UFOs have been around a long time. I think you all know that. In fact, we've got a slideshow that I can produce for you thanks to the people at the Air and Space Heater Museum. That's in Flushing Meadows. If you haven't been there, don't bother, because it's all online. I mean, I'm going to show the pictures to you anyway, right? What really got the UFO investigation going by mostly private citizens was when there was a crash in Roswell, New Mexico. Apparently, some little aliens had their ship crash inconveniently. Maybe they were recovered, but after that crash, UFOs were being talked about by ordinary people who said, are we alone in the universe?
I was actually, to interrupt, boss, I was actually at Roswell, and I witnessed the crash. I was a young man at the time, and our teenage soccer camp was practicing in the desert, and it came down, and yes, there were funny little people came out, but you know.
Well, you know what? Ella was telling me that she saw another crash. It's not even in the history books, but she said the guys that she saw looked pretty normal. They had crew cuts, and they sort of looked like a 50s rock group.
And I was also privy to some information on another crash that happened in the 1800s, where a bunch of little women were actually on the UFO. And the story apparently inspired a very kind of a hit novel. And it crashed into a swampland, so that the family is in fact known by the last name Marsh.
These were mostly associated with the era where people were finding cattle mutilations, and they were saying it must be the work of these guys in those interplanetary vehicles coming down here. And at least that's the way I heard the story.
I think actually the way I heard it, boss, was they were actually kettle mutilations, where they'd cut the legs. You know, you'd get the cast iron kettle with the little legs on it, and they'd go ahead and they'd cut off one of the legs, and the poor kettle would then have to kind of waddle around on two legs. So
you mean their real goal was to mutilate kitchen tools?
Yeah, it was a rather strange cult that kind of peaked.
So I guess the carcasses that they were finding, the bones and stuff like that, that was just people who had roasted an entire cow or an entire pig and left the remains out there next to the...
Well, there is a rumor that those were planted by the government in order to frame some of the early Western settlers.
Even some of my investigators either were personally abducted or their brother Mario... Oh, I guess I've let the cat out of the bag.
Well,
anyway.
in fact, my entire high school class was abducted. We spent some time around the Alpha Centauri area. It was supposed to be our spring break trip, but it just sort of went horribly awry. We did go through some, rips in the space-time continuum, some wormholes and such. This is why everyone finds it very hard to believe that I'm actually 95 years old.
Because it was hovering over his car and it was yellow. He'd never seen anything like that with 4 arms, and it spoke in not only several languages, but several languages at one time. He said he could pick them all up.
Not to interrupt, but my intel has stated that Marjorie Taylor Greene is in fact one of those interplanetary tourists, and is here in an undocumented fashion.
In this, he says, Trump told me basically that he did not have a connection to the internet. And in other words, he's trying to say that Trump wasn't even watching. And so he didn't really know what was going on down there at the seat of government. But internet is spelled wrong here. I can't help but notice. Internet. I wonder if that was a deliberate misspelling, because this is, after all, a historical journal. How many safe uses of nitrogen in children are there anyway?
11.
Could you be more specific?
No.
I'm sure you don't know anything about okra.
Well, actually, but before we move on, I did want to point out that I don't think that Phil was being entirely honest with you, because what he bought into is a far, far more dangerous strain of okra than you can actually buy.
You're talking about a variant, huh?
Yes, an okra variant. You do not want that in your chicken and sausage gumbo.
And that's why nobody can make it the same kind of money he made. They can't do it because there's no more of this variant left.
Precisely.
Honey, I was just about to help you reprogram that chip of yours, and listen to this. You are outing me right here on the air.
Because a lot of valedictorian type speeches are being quoted on websites. One that I was really enthralled by, a gentleman named Nigel Huvabosky. He's at St. Mola's College Prep. He had this saying, "We cannot afford to be poor or listen to a lot of reggae music. My shoes are overheating and my car is almost out of gas, but I still have a picture of you I can sell for food." And you get any idea of what kind of a guy he is?
Well, yes. As a scrotal body artist, given inflation, I would. What would I make of him? A bullfrog.
I am attending undercover. In fact, I've bought my tickets with Zitcoin. So had Zitcoin been around when I was a teenager, I would have amassed an immense amount of wealth before the age of 18. But
the graduates of today, and I'm talking about not only high school but also college graduates, they have aspirations that were different than, say, when I graduated.
Looking at that list, I remembered how limited I was in my own field of studies. I was actually the valedictorian of my class, and so the only job that was available for me right out of college was Industrial Revolution reenactments.
There was an award for the best use of pronouns, and that award went to Hackburton Zek for his book. I think it's a he, she,
You should get it right. For example, they, them, and themses.
Well, he only mentions in his or her book he, she, it, or them, because he can't or she can't remember whose side they are on it.
What about thee and thou?
Well, I don't think they could be here tonight. There's some problem with Uber. It's raining outside.
People are self-identifying, and use guys isn't actually a very popular pronoun with certain sections of the United States.
It's regional, what you're saying there, Hal. It's regional. The next award that caught my eye was the award for turgid prose. This went to a book called Mung, The Little Bean That Had No Opinion on Whether It Could or Couldn't, and Still Doesn't. Phil, we've talked about this over dinner, but I didn't understand what you were saying about Mung.
Well, my mentor Ming was among the many Hmong I meant to mention.
Lollapalooza is the one who won this year's elevator music video award for Funk in My Trunk. But Pink Floyd is making a comeback. I don't want to get off the track. They're performing their entire global sensation, My Magic Meatball. And I don't know, this Monica Santa, who's also appearing at the Whale Beach Rocktoberfest, I think she usually appears without clothing, so it's a big deal that she is actually going to be dressed for this show. But in this connection here, Best Elevator Music Video, I have been told that they will be adding an award for the Best Gas Pump Music Video. Now, every time I have to fill up the tank these days, I see that screen well, mostly I see ads, I should buy this, or the score in last night's game was 13-8, and they interchangeable teams, but there's also some music videos at the gas pump.
I find it a fantastic place to sort of show off your latest. I don't know what you do, just stand around. That's a lot of that's at least 3.5 minutes that you could be practicing some choreography.
My gas pump, when I just get, it just has 3.5 minutes of laughing with smiley faces at me.
Is that because it's laughing at your vehicle? I guess. Yeah. Well, for those who haven't seen Hal's vehicle, you would understand if.
Vehicle is calling it a vehicle is quite a bit of a stretch.
And it's a prototype of something we're going to get to in a little bit.
That is true.
Well, he goes to those no pants refill stations, so.
Well, and those are open 24 hours. That's why you go to them, right? Because you often need gas in the middle of the night.
Yeah.
Or you have gas. And there is now a possibility to make lots of money if you are one of the first entrepreneurs that has a fleet of flying taxis. Now, these flying taxis, for one thing, I believe that they fly on some inexpensive fuel source.
Yeah, I can speak to that, boss. A couple things. Right now, you don't need a license to actually fly them. They're actually covered under, I believe it's FAR Part 103, which regulates paramotor piloting. But yes, you were talking about my vehicle earlier. It was an experimental form, and it didn't quite work out. Thus, I have to go to the gas station. But these are actually powered by Okra.
Oh, well, wait a minute now. I was given this as an exhibit. I was given this. I can't say who gave this to me, but they said it was an okra fuel rod. Is that possible?
Yes,
Is this what you put in your?
That is exactly what an okra. I believe it was designed by Okra Windfree as an alternative to wind energy.
And this is a true story. You spent 20 years in a hot. I guess you didn't plan to be up there for 20.
Well, no, I didn't. I mean, my parents. I was actually born in the hot air balloon. My parents were very wealthy investors, and they decided they wanted to travel the world, and they weren't able to figure out how to get the balloon down, though. So I was actually born and homeschooled in the balloon for 20 years.
Now, the Olympic Games, they have a tradition that goes way back. You know, athletes from around the world compete to win the gold and the silver and bronze. You know what? I got to tell you the truth. I was watching the other night. I did not know this. There's an economy kind of thing going on. You know, most of the world's economies are still ravaged, ravaged, I think is the right word, by the pandemic, and therefore awards this year are a little different. We have, like the British folks I know say, aluminium is one of the awards, and polypropylene, I think that's a kind of rubber foam, and cardboard. So you don't have, you know, gold and silver and bronze, but you get the idea. There is a hierarchy. Countries used to participate in a big parade. There's a lot of pageantry here. This year they just showed what their pajamas look like.
And you know what? This is, to me, this is middle America, all right? This is overcoming the Rust Belt. This shows guts.
It does show guts. I see them now. They lit the Olympic torch with some kind of cigarette lighter or something, some guy, and then it was bursting into flames. It's this giant, I thought it was a giant bonfire. Well, I've been told by je ne sais quoi, who should know, that it was actually just some video of one of those wildfires.
It was, yeah, I mean, I was told it was like a gender reveal party. And I mean, come on, hashtag patriarchy fail. Okay, like, can we just stop doing this?
I see how that would be a touchy subject.
Well, you know, boss, I was thinking, according to the OCCC, right? That's the Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez Olympic Cancel Culture Committee. Americans and athletes and Olympians are no longer allowed to refer to it as fire retardant. Right? The term is incarnate spirit squelching from now on.
That's something I did not know.
It is not like girls' night without hard seltzer. I don't know if high fructose corn syrup is bad. I just know it's just really, really good, and I don't think I can live without it.
And so you're not really concerned about what it might be doing to your internal organs or anything.
I mean, it's vegan.
Well, yeah, of course, so is weed killer, you know. But anyway, like I said,
is it cage-free, cruelty-free though?
Well, I mean, I hope so. I've not seen corn in a cage yet, but if I do, then I will find like an alternative.
You ain't been in the right dungeons, baby.
Oh.
Yeah, I see a lot of that corn type thing going on. Anyway, some of the events are influenced by developments in the political system. I have in mind the new presidential preference pole vaulting event. And the thing about this is, well, for one thing, it's interesting to me, and maybe you were watching last night. I just saw the first day, Britney Spears seemed to be leading. Kanye West had some votes. The entire Kardashians, I guess as a group, were leading after the first day, but we really won't know who wins the presidential preference poll vault until 2024. Even you people at home, I'm sure you surf the web, but the reason this is an event at the Olympics is these people who surf the web have to find something that's true. I'd read that. Jenna, do you know what bionic means? It's a Cherokee term.
Yeah, is that okay, so I've heard of like probiotics where like
It's
if you
a
can't
lot-
go to the
Yeah, it's the prize at
bathroom
the bottom
and
of the
you just-
yogurt. Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Yeah.
Okay,
no,
all right. So we're all on the same page.
Yeah.
And since we are on the same page, maybe I can solicit your comments because I am confused. You know that airlines today, well, okay, I just have to say this before we get to the waterboarding. Airlines today have flight attendants because we have so many fights on the airlines, but I don't understand how this Olympic event works. But that's what it's based on, trying to solve that problem. Now we can look at waterboarding because some of these events, there weren't enough contestants in various things. They had to combine events so there would be enough people competing. You see what I mean? So surfboarding and waterboarding got put together, and a lot of other countries said foul play because America has such an advantage. I mean, we have so much experience with waterboarding. If you can smoke some weed and still be the fastest person on earth, then you deserve one of those aluminum, medals.
Oh
But-
yeah, and I mean, what happened? Like they just totally did Sha'Carri dirt. Okay, like I did my part. Like I am an activist, so I went on Twitter and I had like a 20 tweet thread about how wrong that was, and like I don't think we get.
Was this in English?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
The Lieutenant Governor, Dan Patrick, recently made some headlines and introduced some controversy because he said he'd figured out why there's a surge in COVID in Texas. Too many voters. Therefore, this government of the state of Texas has to get some people off the voting rolls, or he was sort of saying get rid of voters, but I don't think he means to put them in the trunk of a car. Next guy up, Ken Paxton, an attorney general who needs an attorney. But to keep himself out of the limelight or out of the federal court, you get my, anyway, he has introduced a report which clears him of everything. Let's see now, what did that cover? All charges concerning his behavior, business dealings, choice of words, ethical stances, and even digestive mannerisms.
I've been told by my sources that one of the next special sessions is going to be the Jeff sessions. It's expected to be very short and ineffective.
That's right, and it's short because if you look at the headquarters that Governor Abbott is using for some of these special sessions, they're not on the roadmap. And you know, students don't mind wearing masks very much. In fact, for them it's a lot of fun. But in this particular case, all of the masking seems to just replicate the political beliefs of their parents. Yeah, you can see from the slide, we went down to St. Rogers grade school the other day, and we took this picture. Even some of the teachers are wearing some of these political masks now. And here's a guy named Goober. I don't know what his real name is, but he's pretending to be 3 or 4 different students at St. Rogers grade school. And since he's wearing a mask, and so are, well, they're not really there, but.
You know what? Sometimes the person you're with, it's called wearing a beard.
I gotta tell you something about Greg Abbott, our governor. The reason we had a special session the first time around, he was arguing with some Democrats about changing the state bird of Texas. And they said, okay, but then he wanted the state bird of Texas to be a rhinoceros, and they said, no, it's got to be a bird. There's not really any significant job opportunity. Well, flight attendants Flight attendants is another job opportunity. You used to do that, didn't you?
I did. I actually went undercover as a flight attendant in the 1970s. And unsurprisingly, it's an extremely sexist environment. I could not get a single punch in.
I guess you have to be willing to put up with the rigors of that kind of work, the brick wall part.
I mean, I thought about sending my family members over to Arizona for, you know, the whole election monitoring thing, but, you know, we're a little big in the caboose, you know, so it's hard to accommodate on the plane, but we're going to be holding our own elections, you know?
Yeah?
Yeah, I'm thinking we're going to just trot out, you know, a shoe in, and maybe we'll probably stampede if he loses by a nose.
There's other greatest phone records, phone gags from some other Republicans, and you were telling me one of your favorites is.
You know, I was really surprised. I was fairly impressed, at least with one track on Rudy Giuliani's flatulence remix, "Classless Gas." Ironically, that one track was pretty fresh, is the only way I can put it. But now the rest of the album was sort of a head-scratching attempt to combine dubstep and speedcore, so I'm not sure who he was trying to reach with that. And he also had billed it as a collaboration with the Four Seasons. Unfortunately, it was the landscaping company again.
I thought this is a relief, because I thought this was a eukaryote bar, and I was worried that now my bootleg Beijing Bacteria bandstand cassettes were just going to be too expensive to import.
I think they're all on CD now. My experience with the People Named Bailey Alliance for Persuasive Biology, I can't quite understand. You see, they say if you want a new rainproof genome, then you just send your DNA footprint, and they do the rest. They send it back to you. And this goes, the attention Chuck at the warehouse. I don't know who that is. I think that goober might be Chuck at the warehouse. But in any rate, you had a DNA footprint that you were using to get into some of the concerts, weren't you?
Yeah, that was several years ago, boss. But unfortunately, I just lost my. It's a tragedy. Cheering up, I lost my DNA footprint during Harvey.
Yeah, that's true. It's a little hobby of mine that I started with an unfortunate accident with the roof of the first bank of Hump Tulips, Washington. Now, I may have landed, well, no, I was on the roof. Let's just say I was on the roof, and we had an incident. The building was a total loss.
There was a movement at the beginning of the season, and they call it now the designated litter. They wanted everybody in the big leagues to be a winner. Well, this was embarrassing. The reason it was embarrassing is because some of the awards they gave out or were planning to give out turned out to be absurd. Like, for example, Osborne here, one of my favorites, was called the least improved hitter in Major League Baseball. I mean, when Major League Baseball denied that there was any such team as the Skunk Mountain Flippers, they said, take a look at their stadium, because there were pictures of their stadium. Do you know where Skunk Mountain is?
I've been told it's in the Dakotas, but I'm not sure whether it's North Dakota, South Dakota, or East Dakota.
Nine, it's in the Carolinas.
Ah.
You know what? You're all wrong, boss. It's nowhere. I mean, the team's completely fake. You know, there isn't even a team. Look at that. Look at that thing. That's not a stadium. You know what that's a picture of? That's where the first bank of Hump Tulips, Washington used to be.
There might be another Nobel Prize on the horizon, and we have a man sitting here who is whatever you said you're doing.
The rectocranial inversion.
Yes, that. I went to the dollar store, and for $1.99, they are already selling the left-handed tantric fuel analyzer.
I use it to deworm my horse. Yeah, you do have to do it in counterclock. Very critical. You do it in the counterclockwise direction as opposed to clockwise.
That's the northern hemisphere. The southern hemisphere is the opposite.
Ah,
Oh, yes.
Yes.
I've seen pictures of that.
I use mine for accessing just that little bit of soap at the bottom of the bottle. You know, when you have, how do you say, prisoners in the basement and you don't want to waste any slime wash.
That's happened to me quite a few times.
I hate it. I hate it when that happens.
Yeah, there's a dissident in Detroit, and I mean, his name is not known to us, so that's kind of strange to give an award to somebody who shall remain nameless. But at any rate, he got a Nobel Prize for a silly thesis which is linking temperatures and political systems. Do you know something about that, Claude?
Yes, speaking of strange, as a journalist, we know that to understand the problem, you must probe the population. But do not wash your hands of the research until you have become the enemy of the people.
Broadway is coming back. A lot of productions on Broadway. So let's start with one of the most popular, Baked Hamilton. There is also a Smoke Signal soundtrack. Now, I don't know very much about that.
Well, I actually worked on that one, boss.
You did?
Yeah, it was came out great, but we had to kind of burn a lot of buildings to get that one going.
Because everything was done with smoke signals.
Indeed.
No actual music. Klaus apparently has himself an acting gig as well as working on a Nobel Prize experiment.
Yes.
And anyway, I have always wanted to see The Kitchen That Time Forgot, but it hasn't been out there on Broadway for a long time. It's the first time, like it says there on the slide, the first time in 58 years.
Well, this is a play about the objectification of Lederhosen and how a top secret plan for the locally farmed cage-free sauerkraut threatens to take over Berlin.
I was very fascinated to hear that the cinema is coming back to Broadway, but it turns out they're talking about Kirsten cinema. So naturally enough, this particular production is called Stop What You're Doing. And as you can see there, this is something we got off the internet. It's showing now through the midterm elections. So that gives you a kind of a time frame perspective for how long we can expect Kirsten cinema to act out.
I got to be somewhere right after the show, so I'm just kind of,
You're getting ready?
getting prepared. Yeah, it's yeah, a little.
Well, I understand you have a flight to catch.
Yeah, I do. It's yeah, leaving kind of right out the gate.
First thing we have to tell you about is the search by the January 6th Commission for secret Trump records. They've been after these records for a long time. So let me give you some background here. Vinyl is coming back. Now, Donald Trump played with a lot of music ensembles at a long time ago, distant part of his career before he thought about being number one. He was very popular when he was with the Swamp Drainers. Later on, he had another hit. He called himself Trumpster Dumpster. And here he was with a group called the Frog Disruptors. That's one of my favorite records, Don't Make Me Duet. Jailbait and Snitch kind of, it has that edgy ring. And a lot of the music on that secret Donald Trump album is pretty edgy. That's what you were telling me, Nan? That I mean, you can cut yourself with...
Oh, certainly. And if you listen to the album, you, believe me, it's something you need to avoid wanting to do.
This is the only one that specifically says rated X, but it's obviously rated X. Earl, you've studied this one quite a lot.
Yeah, this one didn't actually come with the parental warning, but you might reconsider with lyrics like this. Donnie was a surgeon, two political virgins. Epstein's wingman, never met a thing. Fam, Dodd Selective Service, still made the Dems nervous. Immigrant purging, church and state merging, never had a COVID plan, negotiates with Taliban. Democracy just hurts us because your votes are worthless. Overrun the Capitol because suddenly it's practical. Coerce the vice president, naturally it's self-evident. Liberties in free fall, it's all for one, just me, y'all.
Wow, Earl, those are what the kids call some sick beats that you were throwing down.
One of them said, we these nations, and it's about 200 nations, will only use coal in situations where it's not technically against the law. Huh. And another one said, we, these 200 nations, we will only use electric cars in movies and television programs. I guess that's because they were actually using things that are gas guzzlers.
Like the military, they've committed to transitioning nuclear subs to solar power and surface ships to full magnetic levitation.
I am understanding that lint removal kits, those prices are soaring on those, even though lint is not in short supply.
Oh, lint prices are down 40% due to the fact that we have an oversupply of lint now and not enough demand. We have sort of a lint glut, if you will.
Okay. Mailman repellent, that spray that so many of us use because mailmen are constantly bringing us bills that we can't pay. The mailman repellent through the roof. Also the scuba diver pictures. I'm told that they may adjust the prurient interest rate, or they may not.
Well, you know, the U.S. Treasury's been issuing vouchers for panel vans as well. And so I noticed Earl's already got his parked outside the women's clinic.
Well,
and the motor's running in case anybody needs a ride.
well, you want first, the cream of the crop is generally the first ones out. So you typically you want to have your panel van parked there.
There's another one though. It offers different benefits. It's the AARPO box plan. This one has barking lessons.
Barking lessons?
Barking lessons. I mean, for your dog,
oh, okay.
Presumably.
Well, my dog, already reads Braille and does astral projection.
Well, my dog has been taught Portuguese and is planning to become a folk singer. Portuguese folk songs. He practices every day at the bus stop. I need to teach him to drive so I don't have to take him down there every day.
Is that turning out to be a profitable exercise for him?
Not profitable yet.
Okay.
No, not
But you have a business plan in place?
Oh, 5-year plan.
Okay.
By the 5th year, he's planning to make it all back.
There are just so many things you can do with it, and
But if you're out of airplane glue,
this is true. Well, just on its own, it's just perfectly delicious. A spoonful in the morning, you can stir it in your coffee.
Okay.
I'm not being paid to say any of this, or I might be, full disclosure, but I highly recommend that everyone give it a shot.
Are these cruelty-free, free-range squirrels?
Yes. Well, no.
No.
No, not at all.
Not when they
no.
come out of your basement.
There's the extra cruelty version, and then there's the
residential.
lower cruelty version. That's a little more expensive.
Cruelty light.
Yeah, cruelty light.
it's called producing mood music. No wonder I was confused. Mood music for Italian shoe store companies on a cheap xylophone. So you actually play a cheap xylophone.
Oh yeah, you heard that? It's beautiful. Have you ever been shoe shopping and your mood is enhanced by the cheap xylophone?
There's another chapter of your book in which you explain how you made a name for yourself.
When I was born, I was known as 183947. They used to call me 18 for short. And then it's true. I saw that commercial and I realized, hey, I am a person.
As far as antiquities go, specifically these Egyptian artifacts that you're finding in Florida and Louisiana, I understand you date them in a different way than other, shall I say, archaeologists.
But I use ultrasound noise combined with smell. And I have several patents on that device. And antiquities actually have both a unique sound signature and a unique odor.
In a time period where crisis follows crisis, we had Uncle Joe Biden on the phone with a Zumba call with Mr. Putin about the Russian troop buildup. Most people, however, seem to have misunderstood what this troop buildup was, because the troop, that's Troupe, the troop was a new company because they were going out on tour. As a matter of fact, they called them Putin's Footsies, this troop, and they were going to perform at the Cornhusker Dog Festival in the Ukraine. So they were right on the border of the Ukraine, and a lot of people probably misunderstood why they were there.
That's right. With the buildup of security, that's what it was for. I didn't even put it together until now.
Yes.
I was just thinking about those footsies, though. You know, I haven't had a good one in a long time, but having a nice Cabernet in front of a cabaret of dancing cabinet ministers, you haven't lived until you've seen someone in a $10,000 Snuggie reciting the Russian national anthem.
Mr. Biden and Mr. Putin were asked to appear on Dancing with the Chief Executives because the celebrities who were appearing previously were injured in a very weird Watusi accident. She explained that she was just a dishwasher at the Camp for Troubled Youth, and she may have lectured on rodeo culture. I can tell talent when I see it, you know.
Can you pick it out of a lineup, though? You see, it's not measured in feet. It's usually measured in inches in a police lobby.
When she was finally pressed on the subject of, you know, these younger ladies that got into the orbit of the Lolita Express, she pointed out that Mr. Epstein actually liked older women.
This is entirely true, boss. In fact, turns out she had a whole separate recruitment service called Maxwell's Silver Grandmas.
Then you have people like Senator Massey. The reason that he is in hot water, if we want to use that turn of phrase, he recently shot down a reindeer posse, that's what he called it, that had some man in a red suit, and they were trying to land this sleigh on his roof. So he said, you know, self-defense. I mean, what choice did I have? Well, he had a lot of choices there.
God forbid they were trying to burn down his decorations.